Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. It's the best job ever. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. I was just talking with my husband about this earlier today, and this is my 17th year in business, which is amazing. I launched Illuminating Souls at the beginning of 2006. And over the years, I have had the blessing of connecting with so many of you who are beautiful, big, bright souls. And you are infusing more light and love into this world, and my heart is overflowing with gratitude for our journey together. So whether we're meeting right now for the first time, or maybe you have known me for decades now, it is truly a joy to get to spend this time with you. And you can learn more about what I do at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. I'm also active on Facebook, both as Laurel and Illuminating Souls. And I also have a daily inspiration email blast that you can sign up for, and you'll get an inspiring email from me every weekday. So lots of ways that we can connect, but for now, my intention is to co-create with the angels a sweet, comforting, sacred space where you can rest and fall asleep. And if you happen to be one of the listeners who listens during the daytime, then perhaps sleep is not your objective, but instead I can keep you company for a while and love you up, as I often say. Just bring some extra waves of love to you. So I invite you to get comfortable in your body and just take some nice deep breaths in and out, letting your body and consciousness know that you have permission to let go and rest for a while. And I'm going to take a nice deep breath with you. And as you know, I am someone who listens to sleep podcasts, and I have for years. I am someone who loves the ritual of bedtime. I have a glorious and wonderful waking life, and I love going to sleep. My husband always laughs at me because of it. We were changing the sheets this weekend, and can I just say, is there anything better than clean sheet day? When you crawl into bed and everything's clean and fresh and tucked in just right. And I was musing about how much I was looking forward to crawling into bed with the clean sheets, and he laughed. He said, "You love your bed so much." And I said, I do love bed. not in a I'm escaping from the world kind of way, but more because it is comforting. It is sanctuary. It means that I have lived a good day, right? I have a lovely and full life. And I love that feeling of crawling into bed and the mattress supporting my body, knowing that I'm done. Like, okay, way to go, girl. You did it. Now you get to drift off into that lovely mystery of sleep. So I happen to be someone who loves bedtime. I don't know that we celebrate bedtime enough. I think bedtime is awesome. So I celebrate if you are in bed, if this is your bedtime. I celebrate this moment for you, that you have done enough for this day. And so pull up your blankets in your favorite way, just so. Maybe you sleep with all of your blankets tucked in, or maybe you're someone that likes them untucked. You like the wild freedom to twist up in your sheets and blankets just so. Maybe you're someone who sleeps with a top sheet. Maybe you don't. My understanding is outside of the US, a lot of people don't use top sheets. Instead, they have a duvet that they put on the comforter. So whatever your favorite way to get comfortable in your bed, I invite you to do so now. For me, I usually am tucked into all the blankets. And then at some point I get hot. And I don't completely throw them off, but almost inevitably at some time in the night, one leg kicks out over the covers, right? One leg out, the rest of the body in. It somehow evens out the body temperature. Perhaps more than you ever wanted to know about me, but since we are sharing the intimacies of our sleep time, I just want you to know that we each have our own sleep style. Lots of pillows, no pillows, whether you sleep on your stomach or your back or your side, whether the sheets are tucked in so they're tight and it's like slipping into an envelope of softness, or whether you like them untucked so you can wrap yourself up like a burrito. You have your own unique sleep style. And so, this is your invitation to cozy on up and snuggle on in whatever way brings you the most comfort. And let's take another nice deep breath in together and release. And since I'm waxing poetic about bed, I will share, I am not someone who enjoys being in bed during the daytime. I know some people like to be in bed to read or work on their computers, and the idea of luxuriating in bed during waking hours is a luxury. And for me, it doesn't work. I have to be upright during the day. So I typically am vertical during the day. So I'm not one of those who wants to crawl in bed and read a book in the afternoon. So whatever your relationship is with your bed, just breathe into it. Call yourself into your comfort zone. and the angels are with you. There's just a sweet sense of delight as I bring you these energies right now. Isn't it cool that each one of us has our own sleep style, whatever that means for you? It's like throughout our lifetime, each one of us has developed our own rhythm for getting comfortable as we drift off to sleep. We have our own ritual that we go through, our own rhythm of the things we do before we go to bed. Your favorite kinds of sheets, whether you like cotton or satin or flannel. I love a good flannel sheet. There's something about the extra cozy factor that I adore. Let your bedtime become a sacred time for you. You know, it's that time when we get to release ourselves from whatever transpired that day. And we prepare to go into that beautiful mystery of sleep where the dreams of our consciousness reside. It's that time when our body replenishes, rebuilds, refuels, and restores. So this is a sacred time for you. And I love calling the angels in because the angels are so compatible with sleep. They bring forward soothing, comforting, loving energy that helps to smooth things out so it is easier to rest. So just allow your body to relax, and I'm going to call the angels in. They're already here, but I love the ritual of asking them to join us. So beautiful angels on high, I am so grateful for this time with you, and I ask you to join us here, and I know you are already here. And angels, I ask that you bring waves of love forward for each of our beloveds listening right now. Angels, I know that you have such love for each one of our beloveds who are tuned in right now. So I ask that you bring love calibrated just for them. And dear ones, just take a breath in and release. And angels, I ask that you help to clear any energy that does not belong to us, anything that feels heavy, that no longer serves. And angels, I ask that you imbue each one of us with sparks of inspiration to help us move forward in waking life in a way that feels meaningful and fulfilling and joy-filled. Help each one of us open to our magic, helping us remember that we are magical. And angels, I ask that you bring healing to our bodies, to our minds, to our hearts, and to our spirit. Dear ones, just take a beautiful breath in. You, my friend, you are a divine being having a human experience. And you are filled with magic and with light, with beauty and with wisdom. You are precious in all this world. And you are worthy of love and kindness and compassion and understanding. And your angels are here to help you receive this and so much more. Just breathe. And the angels are bringing to you a beautiful bubble of soft pink light. This light is soothing and healing, and it is going to help you drift off to sleep. So while you rest, the angels will stay with you. And I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. So tonight, we're going to go into the Wayback Machine to 1963. Because I have something fun to share with you. On eBay a while back, I saw that someone was selling a lot of, I think there are 8 issues of TV Guide from 1963. And I thought that these would be fun to go through together. So this issue is for the week of February 23rd to March 1st, 1963. I would be about 9 months old, so I was not watching TV at this point, but it's interesting as I look through it. There are so many programs that I remember, many of them wound up in syndication. So as a child, I would have watched many of these episodes. So there might be things in here that you remember or that you remember your parents watched. If you're listening from outside of the US, you may never have heard of some of these programs. But I'll do my best to keep it both interesting and boring, so it will be compatible with the intention of helping you sleep. How's that for a shared intention for our time together? So I picked this issue because Carol Burnett is on the cover. The Carol Burnett show that she became famous for wasn't yet in production, but she had just signed a deal to have her own show. And so there's a long article that starts off this issue about Carol Burnett. Now, I'm not going to be reading you the text of the issue because this is copyrighted material. I feel fine telling you what's on television. That's not unique information, but I don't know how TV Guide would feel about someone reading their articles verbatim when they are still under copyright. But I'll summarize for you. So here we go. So the issue starts off with some news about the industry. And here's something that I find fascinating. It says, with rare exceptions, American television producers tell their stories in one 30, 60, or 90-minute episode of a series. On occasion, they take 2 or even 3 episodes for a story, but not often. Thus, in 39 weeks, we usually see 39 unrelated episodes. During summer, 13 of these are repeated. What is fascinating about this is they were creating 39 episodes a year. And when you compare that to now, where a season, if we're lucky, might have 20 episodes, or 25 episodes. They were churning out a tremendous amount of content. And then you throw in the only way to watch these episodes was to watch them live because there were no VCRs back then. You were beholden to whatever was being broadcast on your local stations. So I thought that was really interesting. There is an ad in here for a General Electric color television. So color television was just coming on the scene at this point. And in this TV guide issue, only certain programs are marked with a box that indicate that they're being broadcast in color. So this particular unit, they don't tell you how much it costs, but it's a huge console that is color, and on top of it is a phonograph. So it says color TV, stereo, phono, which means phonograph, AM, FM, stereo, radio, stereo speakers. Unbelievably low price of $7.18 per week. But they don't tell you for how long, so I would imagine it was incredibly expensive. And then they also have a companion to it, which is General Electric's Best Buy console, which is black and white, was $199.95, which again was relatively expensive for 1963. But everyone wanted to have a television in their house, so there you go. We were a black and white television family at this time, I'm certain, because we did not get color until later in my childhood. Then there's an article about research about people's experience of television. And there's one quote. This is about a study that was done in 1960. And they say the average viewer finds television an important and positive contribution to everyday life. In fact, he names it as the single development of the past 25 years that has done the most to make life more enjoyable, pleasant, or interesting. In the average home, the set is in use 5 to 6 hours a day. And I will say that was likely true in our home. We watched a lot of television. So we're going to go to the television listings now, and we're going to start off on Saturday evening. So at 7:30, and I'm thinking, hold on, I didn't look to see what region this is from, but I think it must be the Midwest, where 7:30 would be considered prime time. So we have the Jackie Gleason variety show. So this isn't the Honeymooners. This was his variety show. So it says Jackie welcomes comedian Jackie Miles and Rip Taylor and introduces singer Kenny Karen. Karen does What Kind of Fool Am I in Cotton Fields. Jackie gives a dramatic reading of To a Sleeping Beauty. And in a sketch, Arthur, played by Jackie, brings Alice, played by Alice Ghostly, a gift of Japanese flowers. I don't know if we would have been watching that. There's a drama called Gallant Men, which I have never heard of. At 8:30, we have a series called The Defenders, another called Mr. Smith, Death Valley, and it looks like Joey Bishop has a sitcom, or it looks like it's a sitcom. I can't imagine Joey Bishop, who is a comedian, would have done something serious. And then we have Lawrence Welk. I know many of you grew up with Lawrence Welk. At 10 o'clock, we have Gunsmoke. So this would have been when it was new. So before he dies, Bud Hayes tells Matt that his assailant was Billy Poe. While Matt is searching for Billy, an attack by a trio of bad men leaves his eyesight impaired. Okay, I never really liked Gunsmoke, but, I'm sure many of you watched it. And then it looks like in the evening, late evening, they were showing On the Waterfront. So that would have been a good movie to watch on a Saturday night. On Sunday night, we have the Ed Sullivan Show. How many of you grew up watching Ed Sullivan? I did. I remember, but I don't remember this episode because I was, again, only 10 months old. But how's this for interesting? Jimmy Durante heads the cast as Ed Sullivan returns to Las Vegas for tonight's show. Also guesting are Carol Lawrence, who does It Only Happens When I Dance With You, comic Pat Buttram, Eddie Eifert and Company contortionists. I loved the contortionists. The Nitwits, slapstick artists from England, and plate spinner Eric Wren. Okay, there's so much to unpack here. First off, Jimmy Durante. For those of you who listened to my episode about unexpected family, my cousin, Joe Bleadon, was Jimmy Durante's publicist, probably at this time. So perhaps my cousin Joe was somehow involved in this episode. I don't know that for sure, but I'm going to pretend it's true because in all likelihood, he might have still been working with Jimmy at this point. And the other thing is that plate spinners were on Ed Sullivan, and I'm thinking to myself, of course they were, because it is a memory that has stayed with me, and I often use this as a metaphor when I'm teaching. So for those of you who have never seen plate spinners, let me paint the picture for you. So there are these tall poles like broomsticks, and you put a plate on the end of it and start spinning it. And the goal is to keep the pole and the plate upright. And plate spinners would do like 20 of these, and the audience would ooh and ah and gasp as a plate would start to wobble as if it was going to fall, and the plate spinner would run back and forth, keeping all of the plates spinning at one time. This was a huge part of variety shows back then, and I think it is such a great metaphor for life. Like, how many of us do not feel like we are plate spinners trying to make sure the plate does not wobble and crash to the ground? So if you've never seen plate spinning, I'm sure there are YouTube videos, and I just am amused that both Jimmy Durante and plate spinners are part of this Ed Sullivan episode. Also airing is Car 54 and Bonanza. So in this one, this Bonanza is in color. It's the actress, lovely Julia Grant, who has had no luck at capturing theater audiences, easily captures the heart of Little Joe, played by Michael Landon, who was so cute back then. And also on is Real McCoys. And then we have Carol Burnett. And this was, I think, her debut show. So it says here, CBS has signed La Burnett for a series of specials, and this is the first. It opens with a woeful lament, I don't want to be Nelson, with Nelson Eddy, that is. Carol's company consists of one person, Robert Preston, who you might remember from The Music Man. They take off on a frolic through some old rounds like Row, Row, Row and Frere Jacques, after which Preston recalls from his old movies some tender romantic scenes, in all of which he kicked the bucket. Stereo is romantic too. There's just a gentleman's apartment, the handsome gentleman's seductive carol, and the gentleman's blankety blank hi-fi. Hi-fi would be a stereo. Charwoman's strip has Carol playing a domestic who fancies herself another gypsy Rose Lee, and more songs. So that would have certainly been something I would imagine my family would have watched. And how is this for sounding the alarm early? In 1963, this week, there was a news special. The problem with water is people. Chet Huntley sounds a warning in tonight's NBC News special. Vast portions of America are facing a critical shortage of water. Case in point, the Colorado River area. Well, if that was not an early warning sign for what we would have been experiencing all of these years later, 60-some years later almost. Wow. Okay, we'll keep going, perhaps to lighter fare. Now we're at Monday. And you know what we have? We have Lucille Ball. And this is Lucy and Viv learn judo. I'm sure that is a very funny episode. There's a prowler lurking in the neighborhood, so Lucy and Viv decide to learn how to defend themselves. And they sign up for judo and karate lessons. I'm sure that was funny. There's also an episode of The Rifleman. So the bullet. On his way to Las Cruces, Lucas stops a gambler named Griff from committing murder. But when he turns Griff over to the marshal in Las Cruces, the lawman releases him. So I'm sure my parents would have been watching Lucille Ball and not The Rifleman. At 9 o'clock, though, there's a special with Victor Borgia, who, for those of you who don't know, he was a remarkable pianist and a comedian. And this is brilliant. This is Victor Borgia, and he also has Marcel Marceau. I mean, what's not to love? Marcel Marceau was a mime, a pantomimist. So Victor Borgia, master of the one-man show, welcomes two other solo artists, French pantomimist Marcel Marceau and pianist Leonid Hambro. I'm sure that would have been delightful. And now we come to an iconic ad that was even happening back in 1963, and this is for the Columbia Record Club. You can have any 6 records for $1.99, but you have to purchase more after that. They're the 12-inch records. How many of you would go through these ads as a kid and decide which ones you wanted? So, as a sign of the times back then, you could choose whether you wanted a regular record or one in stereo. Big decisions to make. And of the records you could choose from included Percy Faith, some Broadway albums, Peter, Paul, and Mary, the Ray Conniff Singers, Doris Day and Andre Previn, Johnny Cash, Andy Williams, and Camelot. And of course there are many others, but I'm not going to go through the list with you. On to TV, because I think the TV is more interesting. So Danny Thomas's show was on, so Jose Jimenez plans to conduct paid tours of the famous Danny Williams apartment to help Rusty and Linda raise enough money to buy Charlie and Bunny an anniversary present. Also on later that evening was Andy Griffith. Now, I have a soft place in my heart for Andy Griffith because my husband loves that show. It is a show that helps him decompress when he comes home from work. So quite often, Andy Griffith, which airs on TV Land here in the US, is what we watch Andy Griffith. So Andy has helped young Jimmy Morgan a couple of times when the boy was in trouble. But now the gas station where he got Jimmy a job has been robbed, and Jimmy is the prime suspect. And this has Jim Nabors in it and Don Knotts. So Don Knotts had not departed the series yet. Also airing was Art Linkletter. So Lorne Greene of Bonanza must decide whether or not two youngsters will give in to the temptation to eat candy-coated ants. Well, that just sounds cruel, but it was comedy back then. There you go. Also airing was McHale's Navy, Loretta Young, Ben Casey, and something called Stump the Stars, which I'm sure was a game show. Johnny Carson was on at this point in the late evenings, and lots of movies airing in late night. Okay, Tuesday we have My Three Sons, which I grew up watching. Caged Fury. The members of Robbie's high school wrestling team need higher grades to remain eligible for competition. There's a show called Combat. There's also Route 66 and Jack Benny. Phil Silvers also has a show, so lots of things to choose from. I would guess my parents would have watched My Three Sons. Probably. Oh, wait, you know what else is on? So this would have been at 6 o'clock in the evening, so that's before it's prime time, but The Jetsons. Oh my God, I loved The Jetsons. George stumbles into the scene of an armored space car robbery. Brilliant, for sure. I loved The Jetsons. Okay, now I'm going to skip over 8 o'clock because nothing looks interesting to me. But at 8:30, we have Red Skelton. I loved Red Skelton. Oh, he was so funny. So Red's guest is comedian Stubby K. The sketch is My Friend the Enemy. Freddie the freeloader thinks that he won't have any more trouble from the police now that his pal Muggsy is becoming a policeman. There's a show called The Hawaiian Eye. I don't know what that one was. And something called Empire. Jack Benny is on a little later in the evening. And The Untouchables with Robert Stack. Okay, and now we're going to go on to Wednesday. So Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we have Beverly Hillbillies. So when Jed's dog Duke strikes up a romance with a French poodle, Jed gets friendly with the poodle's owner. Brilliant. And we have another Andy Griffith. So young Arnold Winkler has a new bike, which makes Opie's eyes pop. Poor Opie. At 7:30, we have Wagon Train airing, as well as Virginian. At 8:30, we have Dobie Gillis, which I don't remember watching, I just know the name. Again, Beverly Hillbillies. So when con man Harry Jones asks Jed if he'd like to purchase the Hollywood Bowl, Jed says that he'll have to ask Granny because she buys all of the kitchen supplies. Okay, for those of you outside of the US, you might not know that the Hollywood Bowl is a concert venue, not a kitchen vessel. So That's the joke there. Perry Como's show is on, as well as Dick Van Dyke. So after Rob accidentally mars the living room wall, he and Laura hire Vito Glott for a repainting job, but Vito seems more like an eccentric artist than a painting contractor. And, when I was looking through this issue before I recorded it, I found this particular entry and I'm fascinated by it. So this is something called the Armstrong Circle Theater. So they would do different dramas each week. And this week, it's Project Pied Piper. After World War II, ex-German Army officer Hermann Gmeiner, I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name right. He is worthy of me pronouncing his name right. It's Gmeiner, decides to provide real homes for European war orphans. This documentary is based on the life of Gmeiner, president of the International SOS Children's Village Federation. And I was so interested by this that I had to go look it up on Wikipedia. And this man lived a remarkable life. So by 1985, the result of his work was a total of 233 SOS children's villages in 85 countries. It currently has 132 countries and territories, 438 SOS children's villages, and 346 SOS youth facilities provide more than 60,000 children and youths in need with a new home. Isn't that remarkable? And this is a quote from him. Every big thing in the world only comes true when somebody does more than he has to do. Every big thing in the world only comes true when somebody does more than he has to do. Isn't that powerful? Wow. So isn't that interesting, scrolling through TV Guide for fun from 1963 brought this gentleman into my awareness, and now I share his life with you. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about him. Okay, but I'll continue with TV for right now. Okay, we'll go to Thursday night. It's on Thursday night. Well, you won't guess because there's so many shows. But Mr. Ed. How many of you grew up watching Mr. Ed? The horse. A horse is a horse, of course, unless it is something about a talking horse. I don't remember the whole song, but part of it still dwells within me. So in this story, this episode, Wilbur's father. Wilbur is upset to learn that his 70-year-old father is planning to remarry, and Wilbur hasn't even been consulted. Playing opposite that is Ozzie and Harriet, an episode called The Goat. At a rural picnic, a farmer gives Rick and his girlfriend a cute baby goat, and they unload it on Ozzie and Harriet. Also airing on Thursday night is Perry Mason. Walter Pidgeon substitutes for convalescing Raymond Burr in the case of Surplus Suitor. Industrialist John Wilburn gets an anonymous call from a blackmailer who claims to know that Wilburn keeps money secretly in a Swiss bank, money he has never paid taxes on. And then there is the Donna Reed show. And then we have Leave It to Beaver. Eddie helps Wally get a date with Marlene Holmes, the box office attraction at the local movie house. Also on here is Dr. Kildare with a very young and handsome Richard Chamberlain. A Place Among the Monuments Kildare prevents... Oh, we're not... You know what? I'm not going to tell you that episode because it's a little dark for sleep time. But it is Dr. Kildare. So there you go. Airing at 9 o'clock on Thursday, we have The Twilight Zone, which I'm not going to read you that episode because it's bedtime. But we also have My Three Sons, another episode. So make way for yesterday. Robbie's classmate, Joan Marshall, is puzzled, easy for me to say, is puzzled when she sees Bub and Steve engaged in some zany parlor stunts. She dropped in to work with Robbie on a booth for the school carnival, but now she's beginning to wonder about him and his family. Okay, I just love that the description for this says zany parlor stunts. Awesome. At 9:30, we have McHale's Navy and Hazel. I used to watch Hazel in reruns, I think. Andy Williams' show is on. And just as an aside, in late night, Johnny Carson has Hedda Hopper, who was a gossip columnist. Which brings us to Friday. Well, at 7 o'clock, the Flintstones is on. Who did not grow up loving the Flintstones? In this episode, Fred nervously decides to hold a dress rehearsal when the doctor says that the baby could arrive at any time. At 7:30, Rawhide is on. Something called Gallant Men, a special about Winston Churchill. An episode of Father Knows Best is on at 8 o'clock. A pretty classmate agrees to tutor Bud in English. Student and tutor class when Bud tries to socialize during a session. At 8:30, Route 66 with another episode of the Flintstones in color. So carry on, Nurse Fred. So now that Wilma is home from the hospital with baby daughter Pebbles, her mother hires a nurse named, Frightened Shale. named Frightened Shale. You know what that means? That means I'm just about the same age as Pebbles Flintstone. Also airing was Sing Along with Mitch. So Mitch Miller was famous for these sing-alongs. So he welcomes Louise O'Brien and Leslie Uggams. Leslie sings I Left My Heart in San Francisco. There's a show called I Am Dickens, He's Fenster. I have no idea what that is. It says some carpenters backing Arch and some painters supporting ladies' man Orville Wilson have made a bet that their respective Romeo can get a date with glamorous Margot Carlyle. And it's with Marty Ingalls and John Aston. Okay, well, I can only imagine that would have been funny because both of those actors were funny. At 9:30, we have an Alfred Hitchcock episode, as well as 77 Sunset Strip. And that brings us to the end of the weekly schedule, but there are a few articles that follow up here. One is about the impact of television on children, which has been a hot topic ever since television was created, right? Are we going to, create harm in our children? And then there is an article about Sid Caesar. And the headline is The Woes of a Sensitive Comedian. Why he often finds it easier to make millions laugh than to smile himself. So in this article, they talk about how at one point he was earning $25,000 a week for his show. But apparently he had a very, very difficult childhood that caused a lot of trauma, and he shares a bit about it. It's an interesting article. And he went on to be a comedian who made millions of people laugh. That's such a common story that we hear, right? From pain often comes humor. And then there is a fashion spread with Mary Tyler Moore. So it says whether she's relaxing, rehearsing, or playing her Dick Van Dyke Show role, Mary Tyler Moore's favorite outfits are slacks and tops. And there's a shop in Beverly Hills that is just her cup of tea called the General Store. It's a specialty shop on the order of the little shops featured in TV Guide's Tommy Grimes on a fashion fling last September. And so she's showing some of her outfits. Also, towards the end of the issue is the requisite crossword puzzle that somebody has filled in. They got all the answers. And so, there we go. And then there is an ad for the Bell telephone system, and it shows a streamlined phone with a rotary dial. Your telephone almost never needs fixing, and if it does, there's no extra charge. Is there anything else you use so often that gives you such trouble-free service? And that, my friends, is a TV guide from February 23rd to March 1st, 1963. So many of those shows wound up in syndication and would be a part of my childhood. I certainly grew up for sure with Carol Burnett. I grew up with My Three Sons and the Jetsons, Beverly Hillbillies. I grew up with so many of these shows. The Flintstones, for sure. And it's so much fun to go back. It's like a time capsule, right? What was life like back then? And the television had probably only in the past 10 years from that point become an essential part of the living room of the American family. So there were a lot of concerns about what that would mean for children, for our society, never imagining what television would become. Now we can stream any show we want, whenever we want. The access that we have to information and programming has moved so far beyond what it initially was. So thank you for letting me share this with you. It is so much fun for me, and I hope you're enjoying it. I have quite a few other episodes from 1963 as well. I had to buy them all as a lot, and so we'll go through them. I also have a few more from the 70s, and I hope you're enjoying these episodes. I don't know. They delight me, I think probably because they reflect part of my childhood, and perhaps they do for you too. If not, if you're much younger than I am, perhaps it'll give you a glimpse into what your parents or your grandparents might have been watching. So in the meanwhile, I wish you the sweetest of dreams. I wish you a good rest. I wish you sweetness and light. I am so deeply grateful for you. So you be well. And if you are looking for more companionship right now, if you're not quite ready to drift off, I invite you to queue up another episode. There are lots of them in the archive. and the angels and I will be honored to stay with you. So thank you, my beautiful friends. I love you, and we'll talk again soon. Sweet dreams.